So pay attention to what's going on. Top of the page, the Rebbe earlier in that Farbrengen at the beginning was referring to what it says, the famous pasuk Pod v'Shalom Nafshi. That Alter Rebbe said when he was redeemed, that he quoted the pasuk from Tehillim, Pod v'Shalom Nafshi Mikrovli Kibrab Moyimadi, that he redeemed in peace my soul from those that battled me, because there was many with me. And the Rebbe is learning out a very interesting lesson from a Maimer Chazal that's on this pasuk. So top of the page, right at the first line, it says Kimivur b'Gemara miyad b'tchilas hashas m'sekos brachos, like it's explained in the Gemara at the beginning of the whole entire Gemara. The first Masechta of the entire Shas is brachos. Over there he explains Shapasik Pada v'Shalom Nafshi Mikravli Ki Barabim Hoyi Madi. He explains the inner meaning of redeeming in peace my soul from those that battled me, because the many were with me. So the Chazal darsh from that pasuk, I'm not going to go into the details of how they derive it from the pasuk, that Koi al Oisik b'Toyrah b'El Sasadim Mispal Matzibur. It's referring to someone that's involved in Torah study and involved in doing acts of kindness, and he davens with a minyan. Concerning this, Hashem says, "Maila ani alav," I am considering it that person, it's as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world, someone that's involved in Torah and Gmils Hasadim, doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. Now, a core concept over here is that the Rebbe is going to focus on the word kol ha'oisik b'Torah. He doesn't say someone that's loimed Torah, that he is in a way of just being fulfilling Torah, but he's oisik. And the Rebbe is going to also apply the word oisik also to how he's doing Gemils Chasadim, acts of kindness. It's in a way of a business, as we'll soon explain. And it's going to be his davening is in a way of a business, as we will explain. So the Rebbe goes on, and Mazem moving for this is understood. Though there has to be an idea of an ascent that he spoke about earlier in the Farbrengen, that you always have to go up. First of all, there has to be a resolution. In a way of passion and vitality and inspiration, not in a way of doing it like a person does by habit. So the time of a Farbrengen is a time to inspire each other to do things and break out of the regular habit, even in good things. Like the Alter Rebbe emphasizes the demand of the Torah, Ivdos Hashem b'simcha, to serve Hashem with joy, concerning these three matters, that the three matters that we just now spoke about, of Oisik b'Torah, Gmils Chasadim, Mispal Matzibur, should be in a way of joyousness. These are the three lines of Torah study and the service of Hashem, which was in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, the Karbonis, now is davening, and Gmils Hasadim is acts of kindness. Skip the parentheses. These three lines are three general divisions that include in it the entire Torah and all the mitzvahs. Have to be done in a passionate way, have to be done in an enlivened way, in a way of serving Hashem with joy. Then the Rebbe says about the power of a Farbrengen is that kasher inyaza nasa b'isvados, when this resolution comes by a Farbrengen, b'techisoydes shall come Yisrael biyachad, out of the inspiration of many Yidden together, she'ish Yisraelu yazoydu v'yichasku v'yoidedu, that one helps his fellow and they strengthen him and they encourage him. And the Rebbe goes on to say it's not the same as when one does it alone to when one does it with a community. So then we come to the Pod of Shalom, we come to a state of being that we are redeeming ourselves from our own limitations and darkness, and not in a way of war and battle, but in a peaceful manner, like it says, Pada v'Shalom, and then we bring the ultimate Pada v'Shalom, the Geula. Let's skip down to the final line on the page. Seemingly there needs to be explanation that the Chazal say, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, whoever is involved, Asik, in Torah and in doing acts of kindness and davening with the minyan is Mailan Yalav Kilu Padani Li Labane Ben Olam. I consider as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world. Mashmos Hadvarim. The indication of the matter is that this is a great novel interpretation. Even when one's in a state and situation, that for whatever reasons, for different causes, Hashem and the Yidden are found amongst the nations of the world. In such a way that one needs to be redeemed. Since we do not find ourselves in a state of freedom, we find ourselves in a state of exile. A Yid has the power and capability to redeem Hashem and his children from amongst the nations of the world through all of the above. Let's skip to the third paragraph on the page. Seemingly it's not understood. What's the novelty of telling us someone that learns Torah and does Gimel Chasadim and he davens with a minyan, he does this amazing thing. At the very time that we know that every single Yid is obligated daily, both in Torah study, both in doing acts of kindness, and also with davening with a minyan. Not only is he obligated in this, but in addition to this, the vast majority of Yidden do this every single day. It's not even something that's connected with big challenges. It's not even unique difficulties to be able to do all these things daily, like we see with our actual senses. And therefore, what's the big deal of this Maimer Chazal? And here's what the Rebbe is going to emphasize. It's about ha'oisik. Let's skip down to second paragraph from the bottom. Ois Vav. We must say, the novelty in this Maimer Chazal is whoever is involved, and not just whoever fulfills the Torah, etc. The fact that a Yid fulfills Torah and does acts of kindness and davens is insufficient to effect this great thing that it's as if he redeemed me. There's a need that this should be called in a way of Isaac, as we'll soon explain what Isaac is. And specifically, in being Isaac express itself the novelty and the special addition of this Maimer Chazal. Whoever is Isaac, as we'll soon explain what that means in Torah and Gimel Chasadim, davening with a minyan, it's as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world. Mahi Pu'ulas Tevas Isaac. What is the effect? What's the idea of the word Isaac? In the Yadua, Besiches Rabbeseim Nesienu, it's known in the talks of our Rabbeim, the Frierdiker Rebbe speaks about it. Giselle Bedugmas Inyan Ha-Asik Bepashtas. It's similar to the idea of Asik, of a business in the simple sense. And the Rebbe, in the next paragraph, the next two paragraphs, explains that really the fact that there is something down here that's called Asik is really because in Kedusha there's something called Asik. And Hashem gave us, like down here in Asik, to be able to appreciate what Kedusha's version of an Asik is. So let's skip down to 2 paragraphs on the bottom of the page. Inyan ha'asik kipshutai, the simple idea of a business, shekoilo kol inyani asik, that involves all types of business or any type of occupation. It doesn't have to be business in the sense of buying and selling. Any occupation, could be mischor, could be business. Some other occupation that a person has in the world. What's the idea of asik? What's the idea of an occupation? The person does not do it because he's trying to stay busy. The reason why he's occupied with this activity is because he's going to reach something greater through this occupation. His passion is not to just be working harder. The intention of the hard work is to be able to gain a profit. Again, whether it's business or in some other occupation, whatever he's occupied with is meant to bring him some greater thing than what he had before he was occupied with it. The idea of profit is, like the Gemara says, Zavun v'zavin tagre ikra bitmir. The Gemara says, if a person buys and sells, and he bought and sold at the same price, that's called a businessman? That's not a businessman. If I buy something for $100 and I sold it for $100, that's not a businessman. If he invests 1 zuz, a certain type of coin, and he makes a profit, he makes back only a zuz, not a profit of zuz, but that's all he gets back. That's not called business. It's not called an occupation. When he invests a zuz, he has to make more than that. Only then is it called a business, an occupation that's worthy for the profit that he's going to make. Another idea about this, like it's emphasized in many sikhs, we see it's the nature of people. A person that has a job, he's a salaried worker, he's a paid worker, he's on salary. It's not his business. It's not his business. So how does he act? In the morning he goes out to work, in the evening he comes back. When he's home, he's home. He has nothing to do with it because it's not his business. He's just an employee. He looks at the clock to see if he filled in the hours that he was supposed to do. If he's a day worker, so then his work is during the day. If he's a night worker, so then so then his work is during the night. The business itself, it's not his business. It doesn't matter to him. And then he says further, it's not only it doesn't matter to him because he is going out just to be able to get the salary, skip the parentheses. Also concerning the salary and the profit itself, he's limited in time. Since initially he hired himself out in a limited fashion, that his work is for the certain hours of the day, skip the parentheses. When he sees on the clock that evening came, it doesn't matter to him anymore what's happening at the workplace. V'shavla basic, he returns to his home. So that's all by an employee. When we're talking about a person's own business, how do you feel? Even at the time that the store or the office, etc., has to be closed, it's closing time, and he needs to return home. Either he has no buyers or he has no sellers. For whatever reason, there's nothing for him left to do at work. Even when he's sitting at home, when he's eating and drinking, he continues to think about the business. Even while he's asleep, he's dreaming about his business. Is the business running well? What can he do to ensure the business runs even better? Seemingly the reason why he's going to sleep is to get up with a calm head, his rested head. Since the thoughts of his heart throughout the day was involved in business matters, because he's faithfully doing his work. So then by night they show him in his dreams of his thoughts of his heart. So he's already in his dreams planning and thinking, what can I do to make it better? That is even when he goes to sleep. How much more so when he's eating and drinking, then his mind is awake. When someone will look at him while he's eating and drinking, he will seem like he's eating and drinking like a regular person. But if the person looks closely at his facial features, at the lines on his face, he will recognize on his facial expressions that he's concerned, he's preoccupied. Why are you concerned? You're eating a meal like every person. When someone asks him and he agrees to respond to the question about why is he preoccupied, he will tell the question. He has a business. The business is running well. It could be even better. Even while eating and drinking, he's thinking, how can he ensure that the business should be even better? This means, in addition to the general purpose that he has concerning making a profit, if he's a business person that's truly involved in his matter of his business, that throughout all the hours of the day he's a totally different person. All this matters and all the moments of the day, while he's eating and drinking, while he's spending free time, and in his business occupation, skip the parentheses, it's recognizable that he is the owner of this and this business. So now the Rebbe wants to say that this idea applies for our Torah learning, our doing Gemil's Chasadim, like it says in the Maimer Chazal, and it applies also to those that are davening. And he says, we'll skip over a page over here, and we'll say like this. This strengthens even more the ruling the chala oisik chulu, in a way of being involved, in a way that doesn't leave its simple, ordinary meaning. It's a ruling that the Eibishter establishes concerning himself. Every single Yid that even studies the most simple stories of the Gemara, collected in a sefer called Ein Yaakov, he could be so involved in it that he's involved in Torah and Sasadim, and he's davening with a minyan, and at the same time, and because of that, that it's as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations. So let's skip down to Yud. Yud is 5 paragraphs in the 4 paragraphs in the bottom of the page. Ubepashtus, this means simply, Sheitzel Kol Echad Miyisrael, every single Yid, Me'agodl Shebegdolim Ad Lepashut Shebepshutim, from the greatest of the great till the simplest of the simplest, the most ordinary Yid, Tzarech Liyas Ha'inyan Da'esk B'Torah, has to be in a way of being involved, and it should matter to him, and he should be immersed in Torah. Let's skip to the bottom paragraph. Va'oz Yachol Liyas Etzlei Inyan HaTorah, then there could be by him the idea of Torah. It's not just that Torah is like listening to something, someone tells him a story that doesn't matter to him. In such a way it becomes he's involved in Torah. It becomes his business. It permeates him, to such a degree that even when he's eating and drinking, and even when he's asleep, he's permeated with the words of Torah that he heard today, or he's permeated with what he heard a day ago or he heard a week ago. So the Rebbe says now the same idea of Asik, he applies it to also Gemilas Chasadim and Daven. So he says in Yud Aleph al derech they've been Gemilas Chasadim, similar to that in doing acts of kindness. Isa b'Sifri, it's brought down in Chazal, Shama Abed Sela, someone that loses a coin, a Sela coin, Umatza Ani, and a poor person found that coin, V'holach v'nisparnes ba, and he used the coin and he bought himself food. Zacha chulu, so the person that lost the coin has a merit of tzedakah. This means though he had no intention to give it to the poor person, and he has no idea who found this seller that he lost. He's even upset and he's sad that he lost this seller. Still unknown. Since in practically speaking, what actually took place, you caused that a person was given life and sustenance through your coin. It is considered fulfilling the mitzvah of tzedakah. That's all fine and good, but the Rebbe is going to say it's not asik b'tzedakah. It's not called being involved in tzedakah. It's not considered that tzedakah is my business. It's being done unconsciously. It's impossible to say about it that he's involved, he's making a business, and he's preoccupied with the mitzvah of tzedakah. He fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah. Since in actuality he gave life, he sustained the life of the poor person and his family. A person like that gave tzedakah unconsciously because the coin dropped from his pocket, you can't say that when he's asleep, when he's dreaming, he dreams about tzedakah. He's not in such a state. Yet, the Rebbe says, regardless on the state and situation that the person finds himself in. Yachol etzla inyan da oisig gemilas hasadim. He could be in such a way of being involved in gemilas hasadim, making a business of his gemilas hasadim, of his doing acts of kindness. Skip the parentheses. He already gave seemingly a great portion of his wealth. If so, he could rest. He can leave it for others. Let someone else be involved in other matters of doing acts of kindness or giving tzedakah. But he's not that way because he's Isaac b'tzedakah. He's so permeated in what Hashem said about Avraham Avinu and his offspring that they will guard and they will observe the path of Hashem to do tzedakah. To such a degree that during his eating, drinking, and sleeping, he continues to think, perhaps there's in some place a yid that needs to have some type of gemach, needs some type of loan. I've been moving rachav yaser, or in a broader sense, when it says gemil chasadim, doesn't just mean a loan, but it means let's talk pshuta. He thinks maybe there's somebody somewhere that needs tzedakah. If it's not material tzedakah, it doesn't have to be monetary tzedakah. There's other more less tangible forms of tzedakah. Or is there a yid somewhere anywhere in the world that needs some advice that I could help him with? In matters that are included in doing acts of kindness. In other words, when a person gives advice to someone, that's also something that's considered part of doing acts of kindness. Then he's not only fulfilling and doing acts of kindness, which is not the expression that it says, but it says he's involved in it. This is his business. He's always preoccupied with it. So too concerning davening, Al Pidin, according to halacha, it's necessary to have one's mind focused and paying attention only in the first pasuk of Kriya Shema. He has to be concentrated and aware of what he's saying at the first bracha of Shemoneh Esrei. This itself, there's different differentiations. That is davening not in the way of Asik. But what we look forward to from every Yid, and it's in his capability to reach this. That when he stands and he gets ready to daven, that's in a way of a business. His entire being is in such a manner that he's standing like a servant before his master. There is no, the entire world is not now existing by him. What about the rest of the day? It's like we said before, the businessman, even when he's not at the business, he's preoccupied with it. What's the preoccupation with davening when I'm not davening? He says the rest of the day, or he's preparing himself for davening, or he is making sure to take care of things in such a way that when davening comes, he'll have a clear mind. That he'll be able to do it with a peaceful way. In other words, his whole daily activity revolves around davening. How am I going to make sure to daven in my best way possible? Got to do this to prepare. Got to make sure I get rid of that. Got to make sure that, because his focus is, even when he's doing his own thing, his focus is on davening, because davening is his business, and since davening is his business, so everything else it needs to fit into that. Kiloimer. This means to say, what type of things help the person and make sure that when he comes to davening, he should be able to daven peacefully. What does he have to do during the rest of the day as a preparation to calm down his mind so that when it comes to davening, he'll be in that place? If his involvement in business during the day is in a way that he's completely doing it dispassionately, it's not in such a way. He's not dispassionate about his business. He's so passionate about his business in such a way that his entire life is his business. When he needs to suddenly stand to daven mincha, this is a very great test, a very difficult work. That at the time of davening, there shouldn't fall in a thought concerning to his business. Why? Because he's so inflamed and he's so excited and he's so passionate about his business the whole day. Since his involvement in his business is out of passion and vitality. When his involvement in the physical business, in his physical making a living, is in such a way that he does it just because Hashem said so, that Hashem will bench you in everything that you do, like we've learned in many of these shiurim. Why is he doing anything to make a living? Because the only reason I'm doing it is to make a vessel so there should be a bracha in it. So then, if I'm not passionate about the business, the whole reason I'm doing it is to make something that the bracha should be there in, so then it's impossible that the keli that he's trying to make for Hashem's bracha will disturb him for his davening. The kivin shekol in Yonah Sha'asiyah, since the entire purpose of his action, of his business, of his going to work, of his occupation, he kadesh tismale bakashase betfilot ba'ofen sheberacha v'aylakecha. He wants to. Why is he doing the keli? Because he wants to make a place for what he's asking for by davening to come down in a way that Hashem should bench you what you do. It doesn't make any sense that his work should disturb his davening. Again, the Rebbe says here an amazing thing, and this is part of our Bitochon, Shiur, etc. concept. If a person is focused on making a living, not as just a vessel, but he somehow imagines that my making a living, or again, anything else, whatever preoccupies my mind. My cooking is going to make this food come out nice. My exercise is going to make sure that I'm healthy, etc. So then, his mind is completely preoccupied, and when it comes to davening, he's occupied with that. And it could fall into davening, in the middle of his davening, could fall in thoughts of whatever other activity he was doing the rest of the day, or going to be doing later on during the day as well. But if he realizes that the bracha is coming from Hashem, and when is the time that we're asking Hashem for the bracha? During davening. And what I'm doing the rest of the day is just making a keli for that bracha that I'm going to fill at the time of davening. So how can the making a keli for that bracha disturb him for it? Again, just giving a simple mashal based on things that the Rebbe said in other things. A person has, let's say, a wallet to put money into, and then they have the work that they go to make a living. So what happens if the person, instead of going to work one day, he's very busy picking out wallets? He says, this wallet is not big enough. I need to have a lot of money, so I got to get a bigger wallet. In the meantime, instead of focusing on the money and getting the money that he needs to put in the wallet, he's busy focused on the keli. The same thing Davening is when I'm bringing Hashem's brachas and everything I need. In my parnasa, in my health, in my shidduchim, in my whatever I need help with. Everything that I'm doing all over the day, throughout the day, is only the kalim for that. So if I am conscious and aware throughout the day that it's only a keli, it's not the actual thing that's bringing me the parnasa or whatever other bracha I need, and it's the davening that's doing it, so I will not be so passionate about the keli during the day, and therefore during davening I will be able to be completely focused on the davening, because that's when I'm bringing down the bracha that's going to go into this keli. That's what it means. Whoever is involved treats the davening like the business. At the time when the person is involved in his eating and drinking and is making a living, so where's his mind at? Just like a businessman, when he's eating and drinking and sleeping, his mind's in the business. When a person makes davening their business, so then when they're eating, when they're sleeping, when they're drinking, when they're in the business, it's in such a way that when the time of davening comes, he could be in a way of davening with a minyan, in a way that he's involved and he's in a way of business. We're going to skip over a little bit, and the Rebbe goes on to say that the concept of a business also, we said, is in a way that creates profit. So he gives an example in every single thing that the Torah that he learns is he's learning one thing in Torah, but in such a way that he expands on it. Because if you just give 100 and you take back 100, you're not a businessman. And the same thing when you're advising someone or helping someone else out in tzedakah. So you try to do it in such a way that it helps him to be able to grow. Let's say the poor person, he helps him out with something that could help him make a living further. Not just that he'll consume this coin that you gave him, but your advice or the coin or the money will go towards a cause that will be able to make him grow even more. And the same thing, the advice you give someone can be such a type of advice that will be, like the Rebbe always quotes the pasuk, Ten l'chacham v'yech kamoid, that you give enough advice that he won't constantly need to come back and forth, back to you to ask further advice, or back to others to ask further advice, but he manages from this to be able to figure out things further. And davening as well could be that his davening is such that it impresses and it influences people around him to also daven in a great way as well, in a chayistic way and in a way of passion and excitement, etc. Okay, top of page 15, Ois Tes Vav. Yesh le'inyan noisav b'teva b'nei adam. There's another thing in the nature of people, skip the parentheses, b'negea la'esek, concerning business, when a person's involved in the business out of joy and out of trust and confidence, because Simcha, because trusting that will be successful. So already when he's trusting that the business will be successful, that brings him joy. Then it's easier to reach and to attain that the business will be successful. When a person approaches the business in a way of hopelessness, he has no choice, he's being forced to do it, even though he devotes time to the business, and he's searching for all types of ways how to accomplish it as good as possible, this is not the way that brings the success in an easy way, in a comfortable way. It's much more difficult to be successful under such emotional dynamics. Another thing, another thing we see in a business, even the first time around there was no success, at least as much as he imagined. He expected that he'd make $100,000 in this business deal, and he got back only $10,000 from his investment, whatever. That was the entire profit. Or he doesn't really know, but others said, if you invest in this, you should make $100,000 profit. So he doesn't close up shop. He doesn't leave it behind. He tries again, and a second time with new types of ideas. He tries a different approach, etc. There's a lot on now, there's so much information out there, and people that speak about how rich people are such multi-millionaires and whatever, they didn't happen to be the first time that they did a business deal, they were successful. They tried. After many failures, and still failures even after they were successful, only then were they successful. So that's another thing that the Rebbe says about business. Both joy and always coming back again and again. Like the Alter Rebbe, the one who is the celebration, Sayutas Kislev Simcha. It was joy. It was day of joy, and redemption is. He says in Tanya, if a person begins in a way of sadness, that's how he approaches Avodas Hashem. So then there is lacking in the success in Torah study and fulfillment of mitzvahs. In addition to the issue, this doesn't fulfill the command that you have to serve Hashem with joy. So therefore, there's two reasons why a person should not avoid simcha in his Torah of mitzvahs. One is he'll have problems with his success. Another thing is he's not fulfilling the command even as Hashem simcha. How much more so in such general things like Torah should be done out of simcha. Doing acts of kindness should be done out of simcha, and davening should be done out of simcha. The idea behind this is though the general idea of the mitzvahs is like it says in the introduction to the brachas about the mitzvahs. It says what the inyan of the mitzvahs are, and what does it say? That he sanctified us with his mitzvahs and he commanded us. When a person thinks into that he sanctified us, he brought holiness upon us. When a person listens to those words, the person is like in a state of holy awe. That is when he's at the beginning, when he's first making the bracha. But the very fulfillment of the mitzvah itself has to be out of great joy. Like the Rambam says at length at the conclusion of the laws of Lulav, like we've mentioned many times in this year, the joy that a person needs to rejoice in the performance of a mitzvah, it's a great service. And he concludes, like it says, that King David would hop and dance before Hashem. He brings us as a ruling, a halachic ruling for every single yid. The rulings and halach of the Rambam are not for special individuals. But just the opposite. The Torah speaks for the majority of for every single yid. So the Rambam is not just talking about David HaMelech, he's talking about every one of us. Just like a David HaMelech would hop and dance, so too has to be by every single yid when he fulfills a mitzvah. Loirak stam simcha. Not only does he have to have an ordinary simcha, but like the Rambam says, a simcha g'doyla b'yoyser has to be a great joy. And here the Rebbe also brings in about Bitochon. We've spoken about this before, that Bitochon, confidence and trust in Hashem, is not just when it comes to physical matters. That a person has trust and faith that he'll be able to, cover his expenses this month, that he has trust and faith in Hashem that he'll be healthy, he has trust and faith in Hashem that he'll find shidduchim for his children, etc., etc. Whatever physical needs a person has, they need to have Bitochon. But as we've mentioned in other shiurim, Bitochon is also in holy matters. That I have to have Bitochon that as long as I'm doing what I am trying to do in matters of Torah mitzvahs, I have Bitochon in Hashem that He will assist me to get this matter done in Torah mitzvahs. That's the last paragraph on this page. But in addition to this, concerning fulfillment of mitzvahs, there should be also the trust in Hashem, and he should be sure that he will be successful in it. Since there is the promise that no Jew will be pushed away from the Eibishter. He brings it in his Shulchan Aruch in the laws of Torah teaching as a ruling that every Yid will come back to Hashem. In addition to the fact that he also brings down in the Tanya. But so what is my free choice? My free choice is, will it come sooner, or will my free choice, chas v'shalom, delay it in a different Gilgul or whatever? Last page. The prat is yoiser, more specifically. Concerning what we were saying initially about whoever's involved in Torah and doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. So he says that I'll just say it outside, that it says that a person has to be in a state of awe and trepidation before his Rebbe by learning, but prior to that, the Chazal, when they used to teach their Talmidim, used to say a word of, it was called in Yiddish a gleich Vertel. So let's go into the second paragraph, fourth line in the second paragraph. The fourth word on the line. Before the seriousness during the learning, Mekamed the possible Rabbanon, before he used to open to start teaching the Rabbanon, Amar Milsa the B'dichasa, he said a pleasantry, Ubatche Rabbanon, and the Chachamim smiled and laughed. Why was it necessary? Because the Shechina only rests on a person only out of a matter of simcha, and therefore the Nevi'im had these musical instruments for the Shechina to rest upon them. And just like when it comes to Nevuah, also when it comes to learning, also if we want to have Hashem with us by the learning, we need to be in a state of joy. Like we see by those that study Torah the way it's supposed to be studied. That at the time that they're studying Torah, even something, a topic that they already have learned 101 times. So if they're learning Torah properly, they have a great joy as if the first time it was given on Har Sinai. As if he would be learning it the first time. Then the Torah is completely new the first time that he learned that part of Torah, that he was so happy, so much more. So the same thing, if he's learning Torah properly, he has that joy even the 102nd time. So too when it comes to doing acts of kindness, like the Shulchan Aruch rules and the laws of tzedakah, is dafke b'sever panim yafsv'chol. A person needs to make sure that when he gives tzedakah to a poor person, they give it in a pleasant countenance. And Chazal explained that our attitude and our expression when we are giving the tzedakah is oftentimes more important than even the tzedakah itself that we give. Just give a very simple example. When a person stops you, and you give him $1, and you give him whatever, $10, how big of a difference does that dollar or $5 or $10 or even or a quarter make in their lives? Not necessarily in today's day and age will it make an unbelievable impact. But my attitude towards it, if I'm smiling, if I'm caring, if he sees my concern, even though I can only afford to give him a quarter, but he sees that I really care, that is something that remains. In other words, the joyous attitude, the happy attitude that I have in giving tzedakah is a very core issue according to halacha in the giving of tzedakah. Similar to this in davening, though a person must stand to daven out of a sense of seriousness with this holy trembling. But after that, it has to be in a way of joy. Like it says in the Chazal, one does not stand to daven only out of joy. How much more so the system has to be with a lot of passion and so on. Skip over to the bottom paragraph. Through that is added in the idea of doing with all the involvement, whoever's involved in Torah and Tefillah and Gmos Chasadim, b'chol protein yonim the Torah avodah Gmos Chasadim.
Recording stop.